Imagine the world has been deconstructed down to its essence. What would you see? A leaf carried by the wind? What about your eyes? The palm of your hand? The features on your face? If the world were stripped bare, would you still be able to recognize it? A world reimagined and transformed through letters, sounds, and symbols is a form of art called Lettrism. It was first conceived in Paris 1946 as an avant-garde movement founded by a Romanian immigrant man named Isidore Iso, who sought to redefine art by stripping it to its essence. His visual poetry often features letters scattered about without any traditional meaning or structure, challenging our perception to immerse in something that's not bound by logical constraint, reshaping art and the world around us through pure expression and essence. It asks us to experience letters not only as tools of language, but also as pure forms of art. Iso aims to break away from the confines of traditional art forms such as poetry, music, and film, and invites us to experience art that goes beyond the logical and conventional, unleashing expressiveness in its rawest form. In the wake of World War II, humanity was left to deal with the chaos and loss that had left them in ruins, but still had to push onwards despite being grappled with post-war despair. Amidst it all, groups of artists have banded together to seek new ways to create art that reflects the devastation of war, and what they believe can show the truth of the world that previous art conventions had hid from the public. As such, other previously established avant-garde movement that emerged because of the war shares the same ideological and philosophical views as Lettrism, namely Dadaism and Surrealism. All three movements shares the same basic perception regarding the state of the art scene before their initial formation: the rejection of traditional norms, the emphasis on experimentation, and the sentiment against anti-bourgeois ideals. Iso believed that conventional art had reached a point of exhaustion. This is because bourgeois convention binds the artist with rules and tradition, dictating how art should be portrayed. As such, in order to rejuvenate it, he had traced the foundation of art back to its building blocks, letters and symbols. For example, his hypergraphic series, fused with both text and visuals, challenges the viewers to see letters not as tools for reading, but also as artistic expressions themselves. These pieces blurred the lines between text and imagery, forcing us to question what art truly can be. The change brought by Iso hadn't come with welcoming hands, however. As humans, we often fear the unfamiliar, preferring to stay within our comfort zone and clinging to traditions. We tend to lash out or cut down on matters that cross over that comfort zone, and the reaction towards Lettrism is no different. As such, Iso and his followers were met with countless acts of ridicule and mockery. Works under Lettrism, such as letterist poetry, were critiqued as meaningless gibberish because of how it was filled with nonsensical combination of sounds and letters. If you could hear what it sounded like, would you have the same views as them? Let's take a look, shall we?
Gan likidan likidan bar likidin bin yango songyar yango songin yango songin hakonjal balgal hakonjal balgal hakonjal balgal yan hakonjal balgal hakonjal balgal hakonjal balgal yan.
So, what's your first impression? Shocked? Concerned? Weirded out? Confused? These reactions are what the public gave as a response whenever letterists presented their work. Absolutely not. You cannot tell me that that's supposed to be poetry. It doesn't make any sense. That's not even poetry. Poetry does not look or sound like that. How can something like that be considered poetry? Well, isn't that the point? Even a shattered pot, when studied, speaks of its origin and essence. Why can't poetry and Lettrism operate under the same principle? Well, then again, that is also one of the reasons why Lettrism couldn't prosper on a grander scale. The movement lacked greatly in institutional supports, as museums, galleries, and publishers would largely ignore it, dismissing it as too radical. For example, lettrist ideograms made by Gabriel Pomeran were deemed too unconventional to display widely. Similarly, Clarism, a lettrist sound experiment by Francois Buffon, were seen as inaccessible. This lack of support, coupled with the public backlash and needing to compete with other movements, made it nearly impossible for Lettrism to achieve the same recognition as movements like Dadaism. Despite the backlash, Isso was not deterred by the negative attention. And as the saying goes, any publicity is good publicity. He took advantage of the eyes that were gazed upon him and used it as a way to spread the vision that Lettrism carries and the philosophy that goes with it. While Lettrism never achieved the same heights as Dadaism and Surrealism, its influence did not simply fade away in history. It seeped into other movements like Citoyenism and challenged how art is consumed and created, prompting other artistic disciples to rethink the medium that they're using. For example, principles of Lettrism inspired graffiti artists in the 1970s and the 1980s to transform the simple tagging into intricate murals, with text as the central element of art, evolving it into complex visual statements that blurred the lines between words and art. Lettrism's legacy serves as a reminder that we don't always have to keep ourselves confined within a box. It encourages us to step outside that box and explore options that goes beyond the right way. Because sometimes, just because there's a right way, doesn't mean that's the only way.